Paul, how you doing?
Doing well.
All right. You want to use this?
I can use the corded.
Go ahead and use the corded one and speak into it. Paul, what do you want your audience to think, feel, or do differently as a result of experiencing you? Hold on, Paul. Oh, it's a video. Okay, go ahead. I was waiting for the flash and it never came.
I want the audience to...
Can you hear him?
No.
Switch it on. I think switch it on.
I want the audience to step away from what I talk about with a sense of gratitude for silence.
That sounds familiar. 5 minutes of silence. All right, give Paul a hand. Paul.
How many of you know a young person who's trapped on their smartphone? They're updating their Twitter. By the way, today's hash is you can speak, so you think you can speak, isn't that right? They are obsessed with the internet. They're on instant messenger, chatting. They're looking on Facebook constantly. How many of us know someone like this? Exactly. In today's new media society, we're surrounded by noise and information. We're overwhelmed by impersonal contact. In the past, before all of the new media, and most especially before the invention of the telephone, people spent hours, days, and weeks in silence. The further you lived away from a city, the more silent you would be, because you interacted with fewer people. In today's society, our external silence that we experience in the city is filled with interior noise. Rather than talking to my neighbor, I'm talking to my friend online. While I might not be making noise with my mouth, I'm making tons of noise with my fingers. I experienced a gratitude for silence when I went on my fateful trip on an airplane. I traveled by myself, and as many of you may have traveled by yourself, how many of you do that for a living? You know what it's like to be by yourself alone in that moment, and all you have to do is think about yourself, your future, your relationships. In my particular instance, I was going to do my proposal to my then girlfriend. I flew 22 hours to see her. I had 2 legs of that flight, and on both, I was filled with fear of rejection. I was overwhelmed with what my mother-in-law might say, because I planned to both ask for her hand in marriage from her mother, and then ask her. If I got a no the first time, guarantee a no the next time. I came to experience that fear to be transformed into hope as I realized that I know who I am. And the more time I spent away from the instant messenger, from Facebook, from being online and chatting, the more I could see my strengths, that I'm comfortable with myself, and that I know that I'll do fine even with a no. So I invite all of you to enter into that moment, to think about all those times, to step away from that interior noise, and to accept and be grateful for silence. All
right, stay up here. Good? Yeah. All right, let's make it better. Now that you have some of these tools already, you should be able to speak up and say some things. So what did you see? What did you see that Paul can do better? Yes?
He's the hero of his own story.
All right. See, he is the hero of this story. Maybe if you saw somebody sitting next to you in silence and how peaceful they looked, maybe that had an effect on you that could do something to make them the hero. But we have to know more about the story.
Move only when you have a purpose.
Paul was moving around without a purpose. Did you see that? There was a lot of this, back and forth. I was wondering how much turbulence you had on that plane. Because it was moving. All right, there's no reason. And what happens is, when you set up a scene and you move back and forth, you demolish your scene. You step all over your scene and everything that you created in it. So when you're sitting on a plane, guess what? There's not that much moving you can do, Paul. You're stepping over some people. All right? So don't move without a purpose. What about telling? What about telling?
Yeah, I wanted to hear ignore the internal dialogue. I'm going to say this to the mom.
Yes!
What if they say that?
You retold it. I was right there with you because I remember asking my parent-in-laws permission. So I was right there with you, but you told us rather than relived it. What it could be more of is, oh my gosh, this is killing me. Not only do I have to ask her, I got to ask her mother. I got to ask two women in the same day. And that, by the way, raise your hand if you want to add humor to a speech. Never add humor to a speech. Never add humor to a speech. Uncover humor within it. There is a huge difference. I'm going to tell you exactly where you're going to uncover the humor within your speech. It won't be in any kind of joke. Where you uncover the humor will be within your story, more specifically within your characters, more specifically within your characters' dialogue. The dialogue and the reaction. That's where you're going to uncover the humor. Right? Earlier in my speech when I said, dreams are overrated. That's dialogue. Everybody laughed. I went to my wife. She said, take the money, fool. Dialogue. Everybody laughed. I went back in there. I said, my wife said, my dream is not for sale. Everybody laughed. Oh, that's dialogue. Every piece of humor comes from dialogue. We just got some humor for you from dialogue. Inner dialogue. I got to ask two women in one day. Okay? All right. And then you're moving back and forth, the inner dialogue. But I also think you were telling too much. Remember, don't tell, ask. You started telling us how overwhelmed we are. You started telling us how busy we are, how we don't take silence. People never want to be told about themselves. Well, even if it's good, they don't want to be told about themselves. So ask. Raise your hand if you feel like you're a little bit overwhelmed with information these days. Raise your hand if you can't wake up to get up every morning and get on somebody else's newsletter list. Ask these types of questions, and then you have a dialogue. All right, anybody else for Paul? Oh, here's the most important thing, but I can't give it away until 2:30. My other program. Never ever say, how many of you, or how many of us, or many of you. You never want to make statements like that, because you want to do what I call speak to one but look to all. And you'll get that this afternoon if you come. Remember, to be a great speaker, you got to be a great tease. All right, give Paul a hand. Good job, Paul. All right, so what I want you to do, did you get something out of these? Oh, yeah. All right, so for 30 seconds, I want you to turn to a neighbor, tell them one thing that you got out of this session, and then we'll close things up. By the way,